topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hi everyone, it's Arti, and I'm so excited to be with you all today after a little bit of a hiatus. And want to just start by acknowledging the idea that a new season is starting soon, and I already feel like fall is here. And I think with the start of a new season are new beginnings. And so wanted to share with you all that we're going through a revamp of the show. Today's topic and forever now is going to be the idea of collaboration. And I'm really excited about the idea of collaboration in general, in all facets of my life. And so basically the idea is the strength in numbers. And I think that having a co-host and doing things together is going to be really, really awesome. And that's the way that the turn has been happening. And that's what we're going to talk about today and introduce today. And so really excited about this new adventure. If you ever watched that first show when I started, I think I highlighted that I never in a million years thought I would want to do a podcast. Or do anything in the audiovisual world. I kind of always thought that I would be behind the scenes doing things. I never liked the sound of my voice. Never want to be on camera, and things change, or you have some underlying unconscious things that come out. And now I realize how much I love it because it does give some great message delivery. And recognizing that there are thousands of podcasts out there. But what I think is going to make this a new spectacular turn is the fact that it is the idea of doing this co-host collaboration where the message delivery goes even farther and wider. So again, strength in numbers. And so my co-host is going to be Dahria, who's been in our world before. She was a guest on a previous show. It was a while back because I think we're almost a year and some change into this. Maybe even longer, but so she was a guest and we work closely together in terms of visions, which we're going to share today with you all. And Dahria had shared with me that she was thinking about the podcast and starting one. And I realized that my bandwidth of doing it on my own and also not wanting to kind of do it on my own anymore was taking this turn. So again, energies collided and we decided to go in on this together. And so there is going to be a revamping of the banner with both of our logos on there. And she'll share all of her awesomeness and what she does. And revamping in terms of it's just co-leadership, co-hosting, and again, the goal is still to be doing the same message delivery that I so strongly believe in, is just to far and wide to make sure that we account for authors who want to be heard, from stories of from stories of folks who are willing to share anything and everything. Also really looking at debatable, controversial topics, such as alternative health therapies and also the fact that Dahria is going to share, her own personal journey in dealing with chronic illness. And that's what makes it so powerful, because I think we're really, again, wanting to navigate this health system and health advocacy and equity, which we both strongly believe in. And I just want to remind you all, I think that we're not in this for anything but outreach. And my idea of success doesn't lie in numbers more than it lies in if you can have impact on even one person or one time, I think that's enough to feel the magnitude of anything. And I share this with you because I recently moved, and while I was moving, I had one letter from a former client when I was interning. I didn't even get a chance to read it when she had given it to me, but she wrote this really touching line of, you'll never know how much in that time of need that I needed you and how impactful it was kind of the pretense. It was about 3 or 4 lines. And it warmed my heart, especially in that time where I was meant to read it. I was like literally frantically, how it goes in the very end. You're throwing away stuff or you're piling it in somewhere. And I just realized I was meant to see that. And impact, and Dahria and I will talk about impact. It doesn't necessarily always get seen in that moment, but you just know that you touched somebody. And that is priceless, it's so priceless. So really excited. We always want your feedback to let us know what can, be better on. And so I just want you to understand that we are going to be navigating a whole new world of changes, and the banner will be changing. Our title is going through a shift. And so that doesn't mean, as we all know, changes don't mean that everything changes. It's just the idea of novelty adds more wonderful fire, right? I think we get scared about fire, but igniting the fire is so important to keep that energy going. So without further ado, I welcome Dahria with us, and we're going to be co-hosting together from now on. And some days there will be times where, due to circumstances, to have live, she'll be on, or I'll be on, or we'll be on together.
Sounds good. Arti, thank you so much for the introduction. But actually, I think it was touching to hear that one aspect of how much collaboration really means, and especially at certain times in your life, but then also in a time of such transition and change, how you were able to still see a sign of something positive in the moment. So I thank you because honestly, bringing me into your moment at this point in time. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Well, our moment.
Yes,
I realize
our moment at this
our
point.
moment. Yes.
We are
And I
figuring this
have
out.
to tell you, yes, I don't know about you. I'm seeing the seasons of collaboration everywhere, like in all settings.
Yeah, oh, I definitely see that. I think there's one thing that the pandemic has definitely brought upon us is the reality that we need each other, and unity is huge. I know, like, even within the platform, we're always kind of starting out the year with Kwanzaa, where it's all about unity, and so I think it's really important for people to recognize, yes, there's a lot of self in this, in reference to getting this positive alignment, head and heart, but really to stretch out those arms at the end of the day, it's really needing that alignment to be in place, and then the masses to kind of work together to really bring it to fruition for all. And I think that's one thing that both of us have in our charge, is to make sure that what we see or what we even know is recognized. And I think we've even talked a lot about witnessing recently, in reference to witnessing people's grief, or finding out exactly where they are and how we can meet them in the middle, or actually meet them where they're at and then walk with them as they're going through. And I think that's a lot of what I wanted to be able to help you in your mission. And I think hopefully vice versa. Over the years, you've been just a light just for self. And I've always said to myself, I need to bring Arti to the world, never mind, you know, trying to make anything beyond that. So I thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, Dahria and I actually met in, and Dahria will share her background with the work with death and dying and grief and loss. And so mine came where after my mom's passing and looking at message delivery, that I signed up to for this death doula training and through ANELDA, which is an organization that, and so Dahria and I were in the same cohort. I believe Dahria was at 200 people. I don't remember.
Yeah.
100.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. At least
Just
100.
like,
No, it was definitely 200, but it was
right?
amazing to see how
Yes.
many people were in the same space that we were in
Yes.
reference to this need. So
Totally.
yeah.
Prior
Amazing.
to pandemic, correct?
Yes, I know. Isn't that
Yes.
crazy?
So
We
it was
signed up
prior to,
prior.
yes. It was
Yeah.
prior to pandemic, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we signed up prior, but then as we were moving into it, it came
It was
upon us.
January or February.
So,
Right. It was
yeah.
prior to pandemic, everyone. So we, yeah, again, Zoom, like this is before all Zoom went haywire, but
Yeah. Huge.
And so we were in the same class, and Dahria, and I would always admire Dahria because in these 200 people, she would be the one who was raising her hand and offering these really great, because she's been in this industry for so long. And so mine came from just experience.
Not
and,
just.
okay, not
It's
just, but
huge.
yeah, personal experience. Thank you for, yeah, okay, not just, I mean, thank you. So experience and witnessing clients or family and friends, regardless of the fact there was such mission alignment. And then we just started chatting away after and realized how much connectivity there is in these missions. And so, Dahria, can you just share like what you do?
I was about to say, where do I start? Right?
Yeah, wherever you want to start.
I don't know. Okay. So, first off, I said to myself, a lot of times when people find out what I do, they're always like, well, how did you get into that? Right. So, I'm actually a funeral director and embalmer. But at the same time, outside of that, I am a mom, a wife, additionally, a life coach, an art therapist, additionally, and a life doula, and now a grief educator. So I've kind of gotten into this grief. Actually, the end of life aspect of things, obviously, starting with my dad, who I took over his funeral home back in like 2004. And in doing so, it's been honestly one of those amazing processes, because it's given me an opportunity to get close to my roots, really understand even starting with my dad, and then how his legacy prior to had kind of given him this insight to even start a funeral home, right? So he was the first Black funeral director in Massachusetts to become the chairman of the board. And then I'm coming behind, honestly, not thinking I was going to be a funeral director, was pre-med physical therapy, business management, went to Hampton University, thought I was going to be something totally different. And here I am now, a funeral director, right? It was just kind of crazy, but it was at that time, I did belittle it to that point, right? Because the reality of the situation is I didn't really see what a funeral director did. And so as the years have gone on, there's been just like really this molding of a legacy box of my own, which has kind of put all these like the wisdom of the wounds, you know what I mean? And I've been just kind of dropping them into this box. And so that's what pause is really all about, is really the wisdom that's come from the different wounds, whether I've experienced them or whether I've witnessed them. Just really trying to give people some insight about what life's about, but looking at life backwards, you know. And so it's been honestly something where I'm seeing that the funeral director had a span of pre-need, right, at need services, and then aftercare that they weren't fully venturing through, you know what I mean? Whether it be, oh, I just don't have the time, thought, or space for that. Or additionally, it was tough, hard talk conversations. As women are coming into the industry now, we're seeing that there's this compassion level to it. But that compassion comes with a internal journey that's going on within that person that knows that this is something that they need to bring forth within their funeral home. And so part of the mission of mine is to try to make sure that more funeral homes take in consideration the mental health aspects of things and how we are really that front line in reference to the first people that are dealing with these grieving individuals, and how if we could properly set the funeral home up with what it needs to equip them to go into these different, whether it be focus groups or additionally, it could be just becoming a member of something like a pause, where they would be able to go in and kind of self-guided get that affirmation or that inspiration, or additionally get, remind them of gratitude and trying to see the silver lining in what is a difficult, thing in life to deal with, and that we will all deal with. And I think that's hard thing too, is that, the world embracing death, is hard to do. Not everybody's ready for that, and especially when it's so close to home, it can definitely shy you away. And I think the pain that comes with it has, from my vantage point, has the ability for you to find this meaning, like David Kessler talks about, in reference to a meaning in what this next chapter of your life means. Not necessarily the meaning of like how they died, why they died, who did it, and all that stuff, but really the meaning behind what did that life mean to you, right? That it wouldn't die in vain, that you would carry it on, i.e. Dahria, right? In reference to how you've taken this grief and turned it into a passion. And so that's part of what we try to do, is alchemize grief to an extent, and that's what I think bringing people upon this platform, as you've done thus far, and really giving people a place to go to hear it out. Like, okay, I'm normal. Okay. Oh, he deals with that too. Okay. It's not, because even something like relief, feeling a relief when person passes away, people feel bad about that. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of stuff that, we'll be talking about as we kind of go through this journey together,
Totally. I'm glad. And this is the other thing I'm sure you all have felt this summer, like Dahria and I used to talk a lot. And as we were planning different things during the pandemic, and then I'm sure you all felt this way. I think we all have in the summer, regardless, like my personal voyage of moving, but then everybody's been so busy this summer, right?
Because you're having an opportunity to be busy, right?
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened. So everybody got really busy a lot of people realized it was a combination of catching up with work, but trying to have some fun and play and all that business. But
sure.
So then, I have been trying to navigate this like journey of grief, because I think it's important to be able to help clients navigate in all realms. And David Kessler, who Dahria mentioned, got trained under Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model, which is the stages of grief that we're all familiar with. And many people forget that those stages of grief were actually for the dying, right?
This is it.
Right. But actually, we all go through them, and not just with death. And so Daria and I ended up being in the same class together. And then we're like, whoa. So missions collide. And then it comes out that, we start talking again. And she's like, I've been thinking about this podcast. And I'm here saying, I can't do this by myself anymore because it's like my bandwidth. And perfect timing. So we have to look at these connections of time.
Yeah.
I know life is hairy and crazy, but when you really look at signs and timing and you pay attention, the world's and your higher being, whatever you believe in, does send you a lot of signs.
Oh, definitely. Important for us to remember is that everybody will have a different perspective on the grieving process, and how they deal with it, put it in perspective to the extent that they can. You know what I mean? I mean, some will see signs, some will feel that there's dreams that are speaking to them, some will feel that the person is over there moving things, some will have multitudes of different feelings, and a lot of it's holding on. A lot of it is grief. And so but a lot of it could be real. And who am I to know? Who am I to judge, right? It's just making sure that as they go through, I'm understanding to the extent that I can to be able to really walk through this grief path together. And the thing about it is I'm doing nothing but paying it forward, right? Because I'm going to be going through the same thing one day. Like, as you have opened up to me over the years in reference to the loss of your mother, you know what I mean? That, for me, right, is building strength that, number one, there is an after, right? Because the thing about it is, for me, right now, where I am, not having lost my mother, I have no concept of what that feels like. But at the same time, I know if I did, I'd think I'd want to go and curl up in a ball and just not come out, right? And then I see people walk through my doors every day that might have lost their parent and are walking through my doors, right? And so it gives me strength to know that, okay, I can do, but at the same time, easier said than done, you know what I mean? And how I think we help each other unconsciously, in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge the fact, and I'm sure, and to reference grief issues, like, I didn't know what the hell was going on with me this summer, but to be honest with you, I was having a hard time letting go of our house for a variety of reasons. I couldn't figure it out, and not just the space. I love where we are right now. We're so close to, walk to the beach, but at the same time, it was space, right? Couldn't process. That was the last physical place I said goodbye to my mom. Then there were things of my parents that I had to let go of, right? Right. Or even my own stuff. So you all moving, there's a reason it's one of the top stressors. Why a new baby is one of the top 3 stressors. Why a new marriage and divorce are one of the top 3 stressors. So it's the idea of grief, living grief, right?
Right. And I think it's it's transition in general, right? Because there's an unknown that comes with transition, right? There's an unknown that comes with this reality of, okay, I'm starting a new chapter and possibly under a new reality, and how will I really journey through this, and what's the next step, what's coming, you know what I mean? And I think, like you're saying, this, going through and figuring out what you need, you don't need, is it special and not special, am I using it the right way, am I not using it the right way, you know what I mean? And figuring out how you purge, that has a lot to do, and environmental. So I we've been in the pause platforms when we've been going through wellness, and we talk about environmental wellness. And when you've placed yourself in an environment that's you've known as your own, you know what I mean? It's hard to really come into this space of, this new space and feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like the bathroom ain't necessarily mine anymore. You know what I mean? But it's going to be mine, right? But initially, you're just finding yourself in. And so I think in reference to the environments that we live in, especially when we enter into a grieving season, you know what I mean? I think that is, it's very comforting because it's the one thing we can control, right? It's not changing on us. But then when it does change, does it kind of peel that scab back? And that's what I'm wondering, is that what you think you felt like it was open a little scab in the grieving process, in where you are at in grieving, I guess?
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I do realize that's probably what made it so, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about
Because
it.
I was going through denial, right? We had there was some denial of everything coming together and then falling through, and then
Yeah.
wishing it away. So then there's some bargaining happening, right? Oh, I'll get rid of some more stuff if I can stay. So then,
Yeah.
and then there was that acceptance of I'm gonna follow what's happening. So yes, and to be honest with you, there was timing. It was the third year anniversary of my mom, right around that time. So everyone, I always say, acknowledging that yearly anniversary. Something happens to you the month before, everybody's heart is tearing apart.
Oh,
So that
I
was
see it all the time.
happening, right? Yeah,
All the
yeah.
time.
I
Oh,
just
people
always
come to the
process
funeral
it.
home all the time, and they're, it could be when they decide to pick up, their loved one, after cremation process or something like that, or it dawns on them, oh, I didn't get that such and such, and then we'll look at the time frame and we realize it's the
Yeah,
anniversary, that's coming
totally.
around. So it's totally
I
normal.
don't
Yeah,
negate anniversary to grief anymore. The more people you talk about, they're like, geez, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then they realize, oh yeah, that's what's happening. So that stuff is
exactly.
for real.
Hmm.
And so a lot of stuff was happening around the same time. And one of my closest friends, who's a dear sister, said, you can't make this stuff up, that this is all happening around the same time. Like, what message is your mom trying to send you? And then my dad's anniversary is like 11 days later, different years, of course, 24 years
Yeah,
apart.
but
But
still.
still, you kind of look at all of it, and you just realize. So a scab, yeah, I do think it was a scab of everything happening
Yeah,
at once. And so I
definitely.
just want
Because you're
everyone to,
creating loss too. A little bit of loss
yes,
came in it as you were trying to,
yes.
it was like pile up, it sounds like.
But and this is the funny thing, Daria, like, it still took a while for me to process what was happening with me, because I was like, what am I doing? I live a life of gratitude. And I'm like, that's how, but geez, I was trying to, do the holding on bit, right? And I
Hmm.
think you just said it earlier, because the fear of the unknown is
Huge.
really huge. And so we are creatures of habit. We
Hmm.
do not like change, some more than others. But then my dear friend's phrase of what we resist will persist kept flooding in. And it's like, yep,
Right,
right?
exactly. It's so, so true. Because I think, like, when we're talking about me having multiple sclerosis, right?
Mhm.
There's this, okay, day of diagnosis, and now there's this anticipation of, like, when's it coming, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's next? What's going to happen? How's this going to be, And it was really recognizing, okay, wait, hold up. The day of diagnosis was just a day, right? At the
Yes.
same time, it wasn't D-Day, because the reality situation is you clearly had been living with it
Mhm.
prior to, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So you could keep moving forward. It's just honestly, a lot of it has been I feel my attitude in reference to recognizing, okay, these are the cards I was dealt, right? And at the same time, how, even though these cards I have, right? How am I really going to play them? And so the thing is, there's been in my life so much reality of adaptation. You know what I mean? Like, we get settled, we get comfortable, and then adaptation. And whatever your higher being, I don't think like they want you to be completely settled, right? Because you don't move, you don't do anything. What is the goal of what we're supposed to be doing here on this world, in this world, right? On this earth, with all the other places within the galaxy, right? That don't have this life, right? What are we supposed to be doing with it, right?
Totally.
And and so the thing about it is, there's this recognition of purpose, and I think that that's what I was speaking about when we connecting back with that meaning, that reality of meaning. And I think when we're going through transitional times in our life, it awakens, and I know we were talking about not using the word trigger, right? But at the same time, it kind of reminds us of this time period that was uncomfortable, and how we will move in it again, or how we'll shift our brains in it again is really important to us being able to reach or attain this purpose at the end of the day. And I even feel I go beyond just the purpose and what you do here in life, but let's talk about your legacy, you know what I mean, and what you're going to leave the world, and I've seen through the funeral services that I've done that the simplicity of a smile is the most amazing legacy I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Because people are just so uplifted by the smile coming down the hallway every time. Like, he always was, she always did, and so it's those little things that we totally overlook. We're looking for a big old foundation, and I think as you're talking about what your mom wants for you, you know what I mean? And in these signs, and what is she saying to you? You know what I mean? You think to yourself, well, you definitely know she wants you to attain whatever that purpose is, And I think sometimes holding on, I think we look at some things like when we're talking about possessions, right? I think we hold on to certain things, and I don't feel like, for me, right? And I'm not a hoarder, pack right, that kind of thing, but I do feel like there's a lot of nostalgic things that I've have in my life. You know what I mean? Whether it be something that my grandmother had, or my grandfather had, or my mother, or it might be something from one summer that was just really important that I want to make sure that, is resined in some jewelry or something like that, So I do feel like what we call transitional items are important. You know what I mean? To be able to allow us, especially when you're going from one place to the next, like some of the things that were moms might have been things that you should take to the next place, just so the next place feels like you're not totally, you know what I mean, losing her again, especially when you're a little scabbing, But I think obviously being mindful of like your house being overloaded, with and pack ratty, you know what I mean? You definitely want to watch the environmental flip that can happen there. And I know even myself, I've found myself like, okay, you're not even putting her thing up. And that's like, okay, I'm going to make the shadow box today. Because if I don't, it ain't never happening, right? I throw it away. Yeah. And then especially when you join a world with a husband, who thought of that? Now you got to like really care,
It's true. It's true. And you never know what corners something's going to collect dust and have. Yeah, it's so true. And you're right. We everybody says, when do we discard some of our material possessions? When we move or somebody dies. When else do you look at this stuff that's over in a corner collecting dust?
I will tell you situations where I've had people come to the funeral home, and they're like, they'll find a cremains inside a garage, right? That the family had just never done anything, but it was a house. It was transitioned from the parent to the child. And so the
Mhm.
child didn't have a connection with whoever this loved one was. So they're like, well, I don't know what to do with them. You know what I mean? And so keeping it in mind that, there's a lot of things that people can't deal with in their mental
Totally.
space, you know what I mean, outside of
Mhm.
those clothing items or a chair or whatever, but just even thinking of that aspect of things.
Yeah.
That's why, as a funeral director, it's always so important for me that, like, and some people don't want to think about it, right? But I have to get them all the way to like final
That final,
disposition,
it's just,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, final disposition, which is like that final resting place that they'll be there forever. Because you got to
It's,
think generations and generations,
yes.
So,
I'm
you
glad you
know,
brought that up because that my girls were even as even when I was passing my university, they were asking a lot of questions too about about the ash, like the ashes in the
yeah,
urn, and like they were processing too this, and so
yeah,
it's just been a fascinating to watch children with grief, and uh,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because this is I have worked with children in grief in the
mm-hmm.
therapy setting, but it's just so different when you're witnessing it. But
So,
why I bring this up to you is because it's the idea of like they are curious about cremate, like, oh, so I said
cremation,
no, the
right.
urn. I said the urn went inside of the earth, like
Mm-hmm.
for us, and some people are gonna have them scattered, and I gave them examples, but for you to give that like final
This,
disposition is huge. And
yeah, to have that
I
final ending.
right? And Daria, the thing
Hmm.
is, I know you and I are really big into, I know these are awkward conversations that you have to have with
Well,
your
that's the
family,
thing.
but just do it.
Hmm.
Ask them where they want to be. I've already had that
Yeah,
conversation with my husband. I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
And that's why it's so important for the funeral director to have that conversation when it's all right there. You know what I
yes,
mean? Because
yes,
it's hard to go back, but at the same time,
totally.
that's why we're creating and the end of life industry across the board is recognizing that we need to create spaces for these conversations to happen beforehand because there's so
Absolutely.
much taboo
Oh my
conversation, whether
gosh.
it be
It
the
is.
misconceptions, misunderstandings around the funeral service arrangement process, whatever, whether it be a pre-arranging and how that works. Additionally, when we're talking about aftercare and how we can even help in facilitating that. I think there's just so many areas that
It is.
um, it's necessary for people to have knowledge about. I think when we're talking about, like when you were just talking about, and I just want to be transparent in this. So
Mhm.
you said ashes, right? And so in my head, I'm like, okay, do I correct her or not correct her? But then I'm like, where is she at mentally with her loss? And I know she just talked about it's a rough time. You see how you have
Mm,
to you see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
then it's like, okay, maybe we don't talk about that right now, but maybe we'll talk about it at some point, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, and that might be just a correction in terminology, but also your understanding of what the real term should be for
Hmm.
somebody who's being cremated after the
Hmm.
fact, right?
Yeah.
And the world has always talked about ash, right? And at the same time, it's a little bit different in reference to really what
That's
it
so
is,
true. It is
And so,
cremains. Yeah, that's a really
but I
good
think it
question.
also gives them a little bit when people know what, and it's cremated remains, right? We made up
Mhm.
the cremains things, right?
Yeah,
But understanding that ashes, it's not really ash, it's actually the bone fragments, right? Because that cannot be disintegrated. So when we're
yeah.
talking about matter cannot be created nor
Or not
destroyed, right?
destroyed. Yes.
Those are specifically can't be destroyed. So
Wow.
that's, yeah, so that is what makes it also more significant in reference to what you're getting back in your hands at that
Mhm.
point in time. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because people
Yes.
have more of a respect for knowing that than for this concept of
Absolutely.
ashes. Because I have people since like 1974 still with me at the funeral home because family members haven't had the time or the space mentally to
Space.
think about it again. You know what I mean? And to bring all that back to the forefront. But you'll have a grandchild all of a sudden pop up, or a child that has lost their parent, but just couldn't go there because they were so
Mhm.
young. They were in their
Yeah.
20s, they were in their teens, you know,
Yeah.
and so they never had that opportunity, but they come back and they want to keep moving forward with trying to lay them to rest. And so it's,
Wow.
yeah, the things that
That's
kind of
so
come forward.
fascinating. That's really
Yeah,
fascinating because I do have to say that I think this sounds crazy, but if you don't do some of it right away,
yeah,
in my like,
you're just not gonna.
I mean, you have to take your time. Don't get me wrong. You have to take your time, but some of it is just then life takes over, you know?
Right. I think sometimes that's what I find all the time with memorial services, right? So the person
Mhm,
passes, the family decides to do direct cremation. So they don't see them again. They just move right
mhm.
to the cremation process. And their plan is to have a memorial service later on.
Mm,
6 months go
yeah,
down the road, 6 months go down the road. You think you're going to really do it, that kind of
right.
thing. Some will, some won't, but even if you leave it a month, the expectation of the large group of people, right, that love that person, the expectation that they will all be there on the day of service, because a lot of times people are like, wait, did she get buried? Did she not get buried?
Mhm.
Did we have the
Yes.
service? Did I miss it? So then it
Yes.
kind of loses some of its tracking there when we're talking about people knowing and getting the word out
Totally.
and trying to be there to at during that time frame. So then it becomes like, oh, it was just like a blip. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
the funeral service, and I know it's like, it sounds like the funeral director trying to sell something, right? No, it's really the funeral service is because we're trying to make it so that your life is not a blip on the script. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, when we just go to direct cremation, direct burial, and then boom, and then your family member's expectation to do after that when they're in the grieving process. Now they're in it.
Right.
Now, the funeral service is supposed to be the first opportunity where it becomes real, right? If you're,
The mourning
usually that's what,
process, right? The mourning,
exactly,
yeah.
mourning process. And so that time period can really get um, to be one of those things that it just mind consuming, and just
Mhm.
think to yourself, well, what color are the tablecloths, and how big is the facility, how big is the facility, and who's cooking the chicken,
I
that's
know.
just
And
a
have you
lot,
seen it? It's a lot of it is a party planning process, right? So,
Yes,
I mean, it
yes.
is. I just, um,
Tell me about it.
God, it's such a part. But yeah, I just want to remind you all, but just Dara and I will be talking about death a lot. Actually, one of the things we talked about very briefly was the fact that we would want our guests to even go there because we need to start hearing how people feel about this and what is and talking about it openly,
Right,
right?
right,
Because
right,
we
and
all have
especially
these
from,
thoughts, right? I mean, it's not like we don't have
definitely,
these thoughts. Nobody's not
come
having
on,
thoughts. Every year that we
yeah,
age, everybody's thinking about and
oh,
thinking about baby
tell me about it.
boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
This whole,
Huge mass
right?
of people that, I mean, right now when we're talking about the baby boomers, you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, the pandemic, we lost so many people, and now the baby boomer realm, in reference to that loss of people, grief and the healing that is needed, that it needs support, you know what I mean, is so at the forefront right now. And I think the thing is, like, they're even creating spas now, right, for grief healing specifically.
Wow.
I'm on
What are
the
they called?
global
Grief
well.
spas? What are they called?
Yeah, grief spas. Yeah, I'm actually on the global wellness initiative, which is
Mhm,
this global initiative in reference to helping all different types of wellnesses, but
mhm.
specifically I'm on dying well. And the thing about it is, you can just see that all over the world, you know what I mean? Everyone is wanting a way to just get away, an opportunity to just, because I hear people all the time, like, after this, I'm going to sit on a beach somewhere, blah, blah, blah. And so now, of course, the industries have found, that, yeah, that's a great thing to start. But I think that it's not just the hospitality industry that will really make it happen.
Oh, did I lose you for a second, Daria? I think There you
Oh,
are.
sorry
No,
about
it's all
that.
good.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, but it's individuals like ourselves that will make basically those industries, the hospitality industry, work for the grieving population, in which everybody will find themselves in a grieving situation. It could be losing a job, or it could be losing a loved one. And
Totally.
so I think, having these spas will be cool. It's just, making them affordable for all is really what my push is. But at the same time,
Like the
I
spa
think,
experience is so exclusive.
isn't it though?
Tell you until
I
you
was
look for
amazed.
Groupon because I actually I actually during that last week call of the move I was like I have been thinking about this float spa forever, so I went on Groupon. It was $32. Guess who saw it? Guess who doesn't even know when they're going, but who paid for it?
But she knows she's going. But see,
Yeah,
that's the
$32. Yeah.
when you're in the grieving process or you're in the process, self-care is huge right now. And so with self-care being huge, we need to continue to think about it in all spaces. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And especially when we're at our low.
Yeah, and my day, I used to love getting the nails done years ago, but that's not my
Oh, I
now
know.
my cup of tea is like that I've been to a
A
salt
cup of
cave.
tea.
Yeah, cup of tea. A salt cave or like this floats so
Oh,
totally off the subject, but the float spa concept is that so those of you who are claustrophobic, I don't even know how I
don't
feel about
go.
tight spaces right now these days, but whatever. So it is about the claustrophobic experience. You're in this tank with some like floating in this water tank. All your sensory experience is deprived. And it's one of the only times in your life where all your senses will be deprived, right? Dark. And then we have our basic element of water.
Yeah, and where does that come up to?
I believe, well,
Like you're like laying in it?
like you're laying in this tank and you're like
Ah,
some in the water. I will let you know when I
mhm.
do this
I
experience.
can't wait. We
But
need to have a show on,
yes,
actually, we need to video you, okay,
yeah.
in that whole
So
moment.
get this. So now the
What?
big push even around here, like somebody's open. So everybody knows how important sauna is. Those of you, and we're talking about energy healing.
Yeah.
Saunas and heat are really, really great. I think uh those of you who have ever done like hot yoga or any of this stuff is because we're not sweating enough, so we're not letting go of our toxins, right?
Yes.
And blah blah blah. And so there are now more and more of these pop-up places of light saunas coming up, the combination of light therapy plus saunas, right? And so for you to
Ah,
bring up these grief spas, like if you all notice these trends, I mean, we're not in Costa Rica where we can go to these natural, wonderful, natural
like
spas. So
springs.
we're
Yeah, exactly
springs.
right.
So we're bringing, a lot of people are not located near natural cenotes or
Hmm.
spas or springs. So if you notice, even in this country, we are bringing that
Yeah,
water-based experience.
that's amazing. I can't imagine. I cannot
Yeah,
imagine.
totally. Dari,
I
we're
mean,
almost out of time. Can you believe that?
I know, I know. First one, it's exciting. I think we got a lot of different things that we need to keep following up on after this, to be honest with you,
Yes. But let's
because
go there because I think we're going to say to our guests, we will let them know that they will have to discuss death in some capacity because that is one theme that you and I carry in common or something, right?
yes,
Yeah.
for sure,
I think
for
it's
sure.
important. I think the more that we talk about it, the more people feel like they can go there uh,
Hmm.
and not have to
Hmm.
sweep it under the rug, you know?
The rug, right? Definitely. And I think being sensitive to where people are at is
Yes.
definitely what we want to try to do, but we also need to be transparent and real and making sure that people that are ready to try to have that shift are recognized, but then also the people that aren't ready to have that
Yes.
mind shift that
Yes.
are recognized too, and obviously sending us messages to let us know where you are headspace wise and how we can better deliver things so that they do not shy you away from at least getting a little bit of what we can provide. So
Totally.
it's
Dari, what's your best
exciting.
email?
Best email is actually the info at pause number 4 a moment.com.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
the best.
So,
That's
uh,
it.
yeah, if you notice, Dahria has a huge passion. I mean, first of all, she lives, breathes all of it, and I will never. Yeah, we could have a whole conversation on the fact that you do in this industry have to do all of that and above. And my best email is Dia, DIY, a holistic life care @gmail.com. And we are looking forward to this collaboration and cause.
For sure.
And pause. Collaboration. Pause.
For the cause. Pause for
Yes,
the cause.
just
Right,
pause for the
exactly.
cause. Yes.
Exactly. I love you. Thank you so
Okay,
much
love you
for
too.
this.
Are you all right, everyone? Thank you for staying put with our revamp and exciting times ahead. Have a great one.
You too.